All right, guys, welcome back to the Dude Dads podcast. We have a super special guest guy I'm super psyched to have on. Really fortunate to reach out to him on Facebook about a month or so ago. Agreed to jump on with us. Ralph with Dad Starting Over, author of many books, many articles. Probably the most popular one, The Dead Bedroom Fix, right?
You got it.
Divorce Panic, a bunch of other things. Guy's got great content. So really excited to have him on. Thanks a lot, Ralph. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
So, big thing, for those that do not know who you are, kind of give us a backstory. Where did you start and kind of why did you start this Dad Starting Over movement?
Mm-hmm. The origin of my superhero origin story, right? So this was over 11 years ago now, which sounds weird for me to say. It just seems like yesterday. I was married. I had 3 kiddos, the youngest of which was a year and a half old. And I was on vacation with my family, give you the dirty details, and in St. Augustine, Florida. And thanks to internet technology and social media and everything else, I discovered while on vacation, day 1 of a 5-day vacation, mind you, I discovered that my wife was having an affair. And it just rocked my world. And marriage ended. And it wasn't pretty, and it really set me in a tailspin of who the hell am I? It's whenever you endure some kind of trauma like that, and I say trauma because I know soldiers that have been to war and everything else, so it feels weird to call that a form of trauma, but it is an emotional trauma of being betrayed. You think you know what your life is, and it's all laid out for you. You know what's going to happen next week, next month, next year, your kids, blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden somebody throws a grenade in the room and said, I don't think so. And it's just like, oh shit, now what? And part of my therapy, if you will, was let me go back to some of the stuff that I used to love to do. You can see behind me, for those watching on the video, guitars behind me. That's something I got back into. And writing was something else I got back into. Okay. And I said, I'm going to start a blog because everybody has a blog, right? And I'm just going to type away all my thoughts and feelings and all this stuff. And it's like, I'm a dad starting over in the world. I wonder if dadstartingover.com is available. And it was, and it cost me like $11.
Oh, yeah.
Like, well, that's cool. So I got that, started blogging. And of course, nobody reads it. I would cross post like things that I wrote on the site on like different forums that were dedicated to men going through what I went through. And some people said, I really like what you wrote here. I really like what you wrote there. And I really like what you write on the topic of sex and marriage, somebody said. And then somebody said, you know what, you should write a book on this. There's no good books on this whole sex and marriage thing. I like your tone. I like what you're talking about. So I did. And that was back in 2017. And it didn't do too well until one of the dozen readers said, I think this book has potential. I'm an internet marketing dude. I'll help you out with your website, no cost. I'll help you out. You should be having thousands of visitors, not hundreds a month. And you should put this book as an ad on Facebook. Have you tried Facebook? And at the time, Facebook advertising was like dirt cheap. I was like, all right. So I put $25 down, I remember, and set up a thing so people could buy it online, blah, blah, blah. $25 ad leads them to the page to buy the book. The ad was just a picture of the book itself, and went to bed, and I woke up the next morning and I had $700 in my PayPal account. So I put 25 down, $700, and I thought, oh shit, I'm onto something here.
That's good. Yeah.
And so I made a lot of mistakes. What I learned was you don't immediately just say, well, if 25 made me 700, then 50 should make me 1,400, and so on and so forth, right? Well, no, it doesn't work that way. You got to let the algorithm learn and do all its thing and stuff. So you got to take it slowly. Well, I made a lot of mistakes along the way. I had some days where I lost money, some days I made. I was always chasing that high return. And to make a long story short, thousands and thousands and thousands of guys ended up buying this thing. And word got out about it. And I'm getting emails, and I'm getting, hey, can I talk to you about my problems? And I read this Dead Bedroom Fix book, but then because of that, I went back and read some of your articles that were before previously ignored on infidelity, on kids, and all this other stuff. And I built a pretty good audience that way. And I got a lot of eyeballs on all my stuff. And I say, I got to take advantage of this. What can I do to further help people out? Put some more money in my pocket, because the books thing ain't going to last forever.
Mhm.
Wrote more books, and by the way, none of them compared to the Dead Bedroom Fix.
Wow.
That book really touched on a pain point for a lot of dudes.
Sure.
And the other books, all the other books combined, do not equal what I sold for that one.
Wow.
And anyway, so I started a private group for men, and we call it the DSO Fraternity. And we have live Zoom meetings that we get together several times a week, hosted by myself and other guys. We have coaching. Myself and 7 other dudes do coaching one-on-one. If you want to talk to somebody who's been there, done that, we each all have our little areas of expertise. We have a DSO Fraternity podcast, articles, discounts on the coaching. It's like half the price of what everybody else pays in the world. We have courses, about half the price what everybody else pays. What else do we have? We have a forum, discussion forum. It's very, very popular. It's like active all day long, every day.
Nice.
Hundreds and hundreds of guys on that thing. And then a Discord server for people that are lifetime members. And then we get together in person. We've gotten together in person in Nashville, Tennessee, Austin, Texas, Las Vegas. Next year, we are meeting in New Orleans in April. And we've had guys meet in Amsterdam. We've had guys meet in Melbourne, Australia, and Brisbane, Australia.
So, I mean, you've gone global really quick. I mean,
it was that because of that book, The Dead Bedroom Fix. It reached so many people. You know, I put an ad on Facebook and I say, English speakers who, wherever they're at in the world, send this to, advertise this to them. And the number one customer group is by far the United States, followed closely by Australia for whatever reason, and then Canada, and then UK, and so forth. So Australia really took off for whatever reason.
Wow, that's super.
That's the way to take a negative into a super positive.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I mean, you talk about impact, right? And like everybody has something to give, something to like impact others with. You know, it doesn't matter what it is. That's real fascinating. You say 11 years, but really it's more like 6 years. You know, I mean, the last 6 years, you're talking
since the book,
just massive stuff, and really started with Facebook ads. That you've hit the golden era of social media advertising too.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking,
it was cheap. When I used to do my construction ones back then, $25, man, I could hit a lot of people with $25 on Facebook, man.
Yeah,
that one
not so much anymore though.
Not so much anymore. Yo, trust me, we have the whole. I mean, we got somebody for Google and all our stuff. I mean, the money it's endless. Some guys I know. I mean, they spend $10,000 a month on lead generation through Facebook.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's a drop in the bucket for some of them.
It's not. Yeah, that's not very hard to do for sure.
I would say that is. It sucks that you had to go through that, but going through that is what makes that like. If I go through that, I'd want to get it from you, knowing that you had that same experience. You know what I mean? Like it's very, people are going to relate because you're sharing your pain with that, knowing that it's real. There's
yeah.
Well, and you're not going to that's something that's talked about. Nobody goes out and is bragging about this, right? And you don't have the conversation with anything like this, anything that's devastating, unless there's someone else out there that has been through it. And then you go like, oh, like, hey, now you've got this little fraternity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it could be something like infidelity or divorce or, spouse deaths, child deaths. There's these. And it's just things that like you kind of only a certain demographic of folks can really understand what you're going through, what you're experiencing, and those traumas, because it all those things I named are some form of trauma that cause different behavior changes, and you said you question and what going back to what I used to do, that sort of thing, like kind of rediscovering yourself. And I'm sure there's many more layers to that you can go so deep into.
Do you find that? Do you also? So is it all men that come to you, or do you have women too that come to you for advice on the same?
Over the past about year and a half or so, I've been posting a lot of videos on social media, and it used to be what I hear from people is I know you because of that book, The Dead Bedroom Fix. Now I'm hearing a lot of people saying I know you because of these videos. I see your little bald head and all these videos popping up everywhere. You're that dude, and then they do some digging and find out they can contact me. And a lot of the people that are contacting me now are women.
Nice.
And I got to tell you what's interesting is just how similar all their stories are.
Yeah.
I just have to laugh because I get these women tend to be a little bit more long-winded than men.
Mhm.
And so I'll get these paragraphs of, messages, and I'm reading and I'm just smiling going, yeah, I've heard this before. This is word for word what I hear from men all the time. And
Yeah.
Do people, are you able to help guys like, do you help every aspect, like guys that think their spouse might be cheating, or like red flags to look at even just starting to date? Like, hey man, these are red flags you should have already seen before. You should maybe end it now, because those are the things maybe you overlooked or didn't notice at the time. Like, hey, these are things I know I should have noticed that I'm seeing from you. You should, maybe call it quits.
Yeah. All the time. And I wrote a little short read called Red Flags
Yeah. I
for
saw
men
that.
that are
Yeah.
looking for Mrs. Right. That's my shortest book that I wrote, and pretty popular. And it's funny because the theme of that book was kind of, to me, as well as the Dead Bedroom Fix, the theme of both in my mind was, here's shit that I already kind of knew, especially a younger version of me. And because of marriage and kids, I just forgot all of that stuff. Now here's a reminder of, hey, dummy, here's some of the stuff you need to become a more attractive version of you. Hey, dummy, here's stuff you need to avoid when it comes to dealing with women and other people. But what I found is, from listening to people, is a lot of them are like, I have never, ever heard of any of this stuff ever from anybody. And that's sad. And a lot of them don't have a father figure. A lot of them never had somebody put an arm around them saying, hey, buddy, cool it with that behavior, or here's what you're doing wrong. A lot of men have not had that at all in their life.
And it's exactly a big part of our mission, right? Like we feel like we have that to offer. And it's, we were both fortunate enough to have both our dads have passed away, but we were fortunate enough to have great dads, right? Our whole lives, and a solid family unit and all those good things. You're right. A lot of people don't. And because of that, there's certain behaviors that you see, and a long laundry list of behaviors that these men are not doing or doing, and it leads to bad decisions, right? Like substance abuse or infidelity, or just not acting, the right way, kind of, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. One of the most low key but insidious things that I see is dad took off, or there was a contentious divorce or whatever, but for whatever reason, I have very little, if any, contact with dad. I hear that a lot from guys. And they're with single mom. And what happens is, for a lot of these guys, they become like surrogate husband. Their mom's a little man, and she just dumps on him all of her emotional stuff. Here's what happened to me at work, my son. Sit down like you're my husband and listen to me emote about work. Listen to me talk about my boyfriends and my dating problems. Listen to me. And the more you listen to me and take in all my emotion and be my, emotional safety net, son, the more I'm happier and I reward you. And he takes that theme, if you will, that relationship template, and he takes it out into adulthood. And who does he meet? All these women that just need somebody to save them. All these chaotic people that just have all kinds of problems, and he's the guy who's going to swoop in to save them all. When everybody else is like, no, thank you. He's like, yes, please come. If you got drama, I'm your man.
And so I've never heard of it. I never heard that aspect of it, but you're 100% right. I'm sitting there listening, like thinking about, because it's just a whole, right? Like fatherless homes are an issue with a lot of things. And I'm not saying single moms can't do it. I'm not saying I know some great single moms that are killers, right? But all in all, I think they're the exception. I think you'd agree. And a boy that's raised in a single mom household kind of thing, without a strong male figure, father figure, they've got a deficit going. They've got a handicap for sure.
They're gonna have insecurities.
Yeah.
I mean, I got a best friend like that. I mean, some of my friends, they didn't have dads, and they had, dude, I mean, it's crazy to think that they had multiple dads, shitty boyfriends come in and out of the house.
Yeah.
Like guys that, like, I remember my one buddy, Mike, like I remember him, he got just old enough. He's like, I'm going to fight that motherfucker right now. I was like, oh shit. Like, we're at that age now. He's like so resentful of these guys. He's like, I'm big enough now. I'm going to go fight this guy. I'm like, this is so much pain in this house.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then he takes that stuff, he took that stuff in the dating world for a while with him, and finally is able now, after first divorce, to look back and like, I should address some of those issues,
and that makes me think of another thing. Do you have clients of yours or anybody in your community that almost uses this community as therapy? I mean, we've all heard of the saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So I know folks that go to therapy not because they need it or there's anything, they just want to be so aware of everything to handle stuff, right? And I think that's a good way to look at it. Do you see husbands, fathers that kind of jump in and say, like, I'm not worried about anything. I don't have anything going on, but I kind of want to surround myself with these dudes to kind of be aware. Have you seen that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, one of the most common things I hear from men that are either in a shitty marriage, highly dysfunctional, dead bedroom type situation, or I'm divorced and I feel very alone and no one's checking in on me is, I thought I was kind of alone in all this. You know, I don't hear this kind of stuff from my sphere of friends. You know, when I sit down with casual conversations with some of my dude friends, who for a lot of men tends to be my son's friend's dad, or the guy, the husband to the or a guy that my ex-wife used to work with, you know, some kind of casual relationship. What do we do when we sit down together? It's just, we talk about kids, we talk about football, we talk about whatever's on the news or whatever. No deep conversations. And if the guy, you know, tries to step outside of the bounds and says, can I talk to you about something, you know, emotional, whatever, the guy's going to be kind of wide-eyed, like, oh shit, what's this?
Here we go.
And if he's like, you know, my wife cheated on me or blah, 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 blah. Have you ever run into that? A lot of men are just like sipping their beer going, I feel very uncomfortable talking about this with you, dude. We're not that kind of close. That's totally foreign to me. You know, the world of infidelity and everything. I don't know how to address that. I don't know if I want that drama in my life. And they're kind of like, okay. And the conversation doesn't really go any deeper than that. And like, sorry to hear that, dude. So when he goes to a group that's all like, been there, done that, he's all like, really? I thought I was alone in all this. It's like, no, dude, I've been in the exact situation. In fact, my eyes were open to this early in my post-divorce process. I went to a therapist and she said, there's this guy who I'm also talking with whose story is a lot like yours, and he wants to chat with you. Here's his number. If you feel comfortable, you can call this guy. And so I did. And we talked for hours, me and this guy. And he was the one that opened my eyes to, oh, wow, all these stories are so similar. He was like completing my sentences for me. He's like, oh, yeah, let me guess. She did this, right? I'm like, how the hell did you know that? And let me guess. She said this, right? You're like, what? Kind of opened my eyes to the universality of the human condition and how we're all so similar and all our experiences are so similar, how we're so predictable as human beings, you know, the human animal. And that kind of started me on my journey of how interesting this all is. And I didn't realize so many people were going through this and just writing on the topic and seeking to help others.
Yeah. And it kind of jumped all over the place. Is this your profession now? This is
this is it.
This is how you make a living.
You got it. Mm-hmm.
That's pretty awesome. What did you do prior?
I was a marketing guy. So for years, I would help businesses with marketing their business, more on the creative side, you know, a lot of graphic design, video, and all kinds of stuff. I had a little agency there for a while.
Nice. And you don't do any of that anymore?
For myself, I do. It's kind of, it's good that I took those skills and I can apply it here, but for others, no.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So what does an average day or week look like for you? Is it kind of this kind of interactions, working with your clients kind of thing?
I do, it varies week to week, but I would say on average, probably like 5 to 8 coaching sessions a week with guys. And those are an hour each. Chatting with our guys in the forum, chatting with the guys on the Dad Starting Over team, creating content via video, doing podcast interviews, my own podcast. I tell you, it's all over the place, and I don't have enough hours in the day. That's my current problem. So I'm at the stage now of my business where I am kind of systemizing things, putting things down on paper. This is every day what I do, step 1, step 2, and then I'm handing that to others. And I'm going to be looking here for like a virtual assistant to help me out with posting a lot of content. That's a very time suck thing that I don't make any money at necessarily. You know,
we're learning that real quick.
Shit. Yeah, we have someone trying to help us now with all that, breaking that stuff down.
Yeah, no, that's great, man.
How do you, so when that happens to someone, so stepping away from just us and the wife, how do you sell that to the kids? And how does that look when they get older and have more of an understanding of their own relationships? Like, how do you make do you have to look at it like, I guess you pick two ways. You're either going to bash your wife or you guys talk, look, I don't want my you're still their mom. You know what I mean? So how do you approach that? How do you sell it? And how do they think about it later when they grow up?
You have to realize, as far as the specific drama between you and your ex-spouse, it's kind of between you guys.
Yeah.
And if, but a lot of guys get so angry and so bitter that did you know your mom did this? And what they're often surprised at is, instead of the kid saying, oh my gosh, daddy, I'm sorry that happened to you, I'm on your side now. In fact, what kids often do is become overprotective of mom, the person that dad's lashing out at. And they will hide things about mom. They won't say things about mom because they know it's just going to piss dad off even more. And then dad takes that as, oh, all these kids are betraying me. They're taking mom's side, the cheater, the alcoholic, the whatever it may be. It's like, no, you don't understand. That's their mommy. And they love mom, regardless of what she does. I often talk about, there was this little experiment done. I think the experimenter or psychologist was named Harlow. This was done years and years ago. And he infamously took a baby monkey away from its mother and did all kinds of experiments to watch what happens to a little infant monkey when you remove it from mom. And they imprinted in the baby monkey, here's your mother. And it was a box with like carpet over it. And this is your mother. And the baby monkey got attached to the box. So they're like, wow, all it takes is a little bit of training and we can teach a little baby that anything's its mother, right? And then the box had like a little hammer attached to it, and it would beat the baby and send the baby flying across the cage. And instead of cowering, saying, I'm not going to touch that box anymore, obviously, or mom, no, it was more attached to the box than ever. Every time I got hit, it just kept coming back and hung on for dear life. Kept coming back, hanging on for dear life. And that's kind of illustrative of human beings, very similar.
How old are your kids? How old are your kids now?
I have one that's 20 in college, 16 and 11.
Okay, so 16 and a 20-year-old, did they ask more questions now later, or it's like it's so old news they don't care?
Yeah, it's kind of an unspoken, understood thing. We all know what happened.
Yeah,
I can hear it kind of. I've heard things secondhand, spoken to friends. I've heard, and whatever, but they'll never hear overtly from me like, kids, let me sit you down and tell you what happened. If that ever happens, I'll be like, sure, let me fill in some detail. But I think over the years, they can put two and two together. They realize.
And mom doesn't have to explain herself. The kids are just like, man, we like both of you, whatever.
Yeah. And there was some real glaringly negative things there at the very beginning, when she met her man, who, by the way, she's still with.
Oh.
She introduced that man when we talked about the infamous vacation. When we returned from vacation, I think that next week she introduced the kids to that man.
I would have a really tough time with that.
This is mommy's friend. It wasn't like, hey, mommy's boyfriend, or this is the new dad or nothing. It was just like, here's mom's friend. They were out somewhere and my kids talked about it and said, we met mom's friend. I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ.
That would be one of my biggest fears is if I ever got divorced. I could not think of another man being in my kid's life. I would.
That's what every man says. That's what every man says. Yep.
But yet it happens, and you have to deal with it, because what are you going to do? Hurt your kids? Like, you're
lash
not
out at him.
Those are your choices.
I guess I want my kids a certain genre. We always talk about better in the pedigree, so I don't need any more. I don't need another influence that is not my thought. It's so scary of a thought to me.
It is, for sure.
Yeah, every man says, I can't imagine another man tucking my kid in at night, playing catch with them, doing the very dad things. It's like, that's my job, damn it. But you cross your fingers that he's a decent human being, and you realize he'll never ever be dad. He's just mom's dude.
Yeah, okay.
And he's basically what I've heard from my kiddos is that's mom's dude. He's cool. He's got some good things about him. He helped me with this thing the other day, helped me with that thing, but he's not dad. You're dad.
And it's your job not to let him become dad. So if you're a good dad already, then that's not a problem.
Yeah. And it's also just, keep tabs on things. Yeah. Keep your ear to the ground, I guess you could say, and just make sure everything's okay. Quiz how everything's going at mom's kiddos. Everything cool?
Yeah. You never know who's in the house. I would have a problem with that too, just knowing what this dude really like.
There are
young kids, or a daughter, like.
There are horror stories of some of these really dysfunctional moms that go off the deep end and they don't connect with the most wholesome dudes in the world.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's mom connected with a 5-time felon or somebody with, sexual assault charges in the past or whatever. And you're like, could you pick a worse human being bring the kids around. And
it's heartbreaking. Gosh,
I have one infamous story when, it was funny when I look back on when I very first started this. It was almost like I was being tested by God or the universe or whatever you want to call it, basically saying, "You sure you want to do this, dude?" Because when I first said, "I'm coaching now, if you want to talk to me and seek my counsel, here you go," the first, I don't know, 5 or 6 dudes were really like, "Holy shit, dude, I don't know if I want to do this." And one was my wife, borderline personality disorder, ran around with a bunch of men. I went to go pick up we separated. She went to an apartment. I went to go pick up my kiddo at the apartment. I go knock on the apartment door, and all of a sudden some guy jumps out of the bushes, literally, and just starts punching me in the back, this guy says. And I'm on the ground, and this guy's just wailing on me. And I finally turn around, and I see he's got a knife in his hand. And he's like, "Oh, shit." And then he notices there's blood all over the place. And he's like, "Did you just stab me?"
Oh,
and the guy runs away. The guy had stabbed him 9 times in the back. And one of them nicked his spine, but it didn't sever the spinal cord, but it was like a centimeter away or something like that. So he could have been paralyzed. So she hooked up with some crazy nut who was like, "This guy's a threat," and decided to try and kill him. And the guy went to prison over it and everything else. And so it can get that bad.
Good God, man.
Yeah.
I think it's knowing, because I've been on the other side. I've been single. I've seen women be crazy in the bars. I mean, I've seen what it's like. So like, it's not like I'm speaking like I don't know what that side's like. I've seen that side. You know what I mean?
Goodness gracious, man. Are you remarried now?
Yes, I am.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. You don't speak on that very often.
Oh, what? She's been on the podcast.
Okay.
She's very big in my world.
Okay.
She is from Germany originally. She's a physician.
Nice.
She's a pediatric surgeon, and we met while she was here in the States for training. And we have a long, convoluted story. It's very interesting, but it's really worked out well.
That's pretty awesome. And that kind of brings up another thing curious about. Do you think this issue, we'll call it an issue, is more a Western woman problem, or is it equally global everywhere?
Meaning the infidelity.
Yeah.
Screwing. Yeah, I don't. Here's the thing. I think it is something that has always been there. Infidelity. Grandpa screwed around on grandma with the secretary.
Right.
Grandma screwed the milkman. Whatever. These are not new stories. I think for whatever reason, it's more out in the open now.
Right.
And I think with divorce laws and everything, divorce is so easy these days that instead of, "Oops, grandma screwed the milkman, let's just keep that under wraps," it's and pretend that never happened. And nobody nobody notices that Uncle Bob looks a lot different from all the other kids. We'll just pretend we don't notice that. Instead, it's now, mom these days would just say, "Well, all I have to do is snap my fingers and we're divorced." I think that's an avenue I want to pursue, is just to leave and go start elsewhere. And then the argument could be made that there's laws in place that make that a lot easier and advantageous for her to do so in a lot of cases. Yeah. Let me look at on paper. Oh, wow, I potentially get child support, so I don't have to worry about, making X number of dollars and maybe even alimony, and then I'd win so many assets and have half of my debts taken care of. What's to lose here? I've started having feelings for this other man over here. Let's pull the trigger and go for it. I think it's like a perfect storm of stuff all together to make it much more prevalent that women are walking away. Now, is that a Western thing necessarily? I don't know. I know for a fact we have a gentleman in India in our DSO fraternity group, and he says, "Oh, it's even worse over there." That women are much more open and much more blunt about, "I have my husband at home. That poor schmuck over there. I'm out here to have fun tonight," kind of thing.
Right.
He hears that all the time.
Of the loyalty there,
because there's other cultures that are the exact opposite of that around the world.
Oh, sure.
Like, I mean, that these women are the whole other extreme as far as like serving their man. And I'm not saying that's the way it should be or anything like that, but just there's differences in cultures around the globe. And I didn't know since you were all over the place, if you had noticed a difference.
There is there's this current trend of what they call the passport bros. Are you familiar with this?
No.
Do a search on social media. It's a whole thing. Okay. Passport bros, meaning usually probably 40 plus year old gentlemen who have been around the block a few times, divorced, tried out the dating thing. and came much to the same conclusion. Like, these women over here are just, forget it. And they go to places like the Philippines, Thailand, South America. Let's be honest, probably your more economically downtrodden areas.
Mm-hmm.
And the women are more quote unquote feminine and more submissive and more like, well, hello there, Mr. American. And they dote all over them. And these men feel like a king. And they're like, why would I go back home to Indiana where I'm made to feel like a, dumb schmuck that's hitting on some woman and feel like a creep when I come over here to the Philippines and I got women hanging all over me saying, you're the king. And
right.
And so, they keep going back and they make social media accounts and so forth about women over here are so much nicer.
One of my subs doing that. One of the guys I've known for a long time, and he retired, and he went down to the Philippines, and he has a very hot girlfriend. This is the second one, and I spoke to my brother about it. I was like, is this thing real? Like, he's really going to go down there and get a hot wife or a girlfriend? He's like, oh yeah, or he gets murdered. It's about a 50-50. So they're going to meet online. They're either going to take his money when he gets down there, or he's like, yeah, he's going to have like everything he wants. They accept the retirement money down there, so he's like good to go. He sends pictures, and you're just like, I mean, up here, he's not a good looking dude. No. You know what I mean? Like, he knows that. So he's down, but he's down there. I mean, he's getting like, dime pieces. Oh yeah. But to them, the parents, I said, what is it like with the parents? And he's like, that's fine. They love it that she's getting essentially a white, English guy. They that's how they feel of like, yeah, he has money. He's going to take care of us. Takes care of the whole family. So,
and I don't necessarily think that's the right thing to do either.
But it's a nice cheat code for some guys. I mean, that's not a bad move.
Dude, let's admit it. All of us kind of say, I get it. I can see the draw of it. If you're worshipped as a man and there's a really overly feminine, attractive, woman that hits on you, and it's, in a lot of these places, it's not necessarily just women that are gold diggers, to use that term, that are out to get you and so they can get to the States and get a green card. That exists. We all know that does. Mm-hmm. But some, it's just culturally, the women are more open and friendly. And guys that go to Costa Rica, Colombia, and so forth will say, I went to a coffee shop and just struck up a conversation with probably the hottest woman I've ever seen in my life. And she was just open and friendly. And then we went our separate ways. And that was it. And I was like, what the hell was that? That would have never happened back home in the States. No. And so it's just culturally, it's more open and more, I guess the men are made to feel less like pieces of shit. And they're made to feel like what they want to feel like, which is a high value dude, as they say.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you when you meet all sorts of guys, how do you decipher like ones that are just like, hey, I'm trying to find a way to put this. It doesn't sound terrible. Are there ones that are like, they're a true victim, for lack of a better word, and other ones that are like, for lack of a better word, that just straight up deserve it? Like, look, man, you're a dick. You're not a good husband or a good dad. No fucking wonder this happened to you.
Yeah.
Do you ever have those types of conversations?
Sure. It's a relatively small subset of the guys. And that's not because, I'm biased and I'm saying all men are angels. They're not, dude. I've talked to many men who have cheated. And I have had the conversation of a guy's telling me this story. And at the end of the story, he expects me to be, yeah, dude, you need to leave, whatever. And I'll just be like, you need to yank your head out of your ass, dude. You have a really good woman on your hands. And she's trying like hell to make this work. She's a good person. She's working hard. You need to stop with the secretary at work. You need to focus on your family, blah, 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 blah. I've had those conversations. It happens every now and then. And I've run into some guys that are probably more on the narcissistic scale. And I'll hear them say stuff like, I'm tall, dark, and handsome. I'm this, I'm that. I'm a good catch. And after our second kid, my wife gained 10 pounds and I don't know if I want to be with her anymore. That kind of shitty behavior. So it's all over the place. But the majority of men that I talk to are the type that fall under the category of being kind of anxious dudes. And they're always chasing after other women. And they're always worried about the relationship. What does she feel now? How does she feel? Does she like me? Why are we not having sex? And these men are very anxious and very just constantly chasing after the woman and trying to win her over. Those tend not to be more asshole narcissistic types.
My grandfather once told me that. He's like, man, you want a woman that comes to you. And at first I thought he was just being like, slick, you know what I mean? But then I understand it's like you want somebody that wants you know, that you're not having to chase. You mean, because if you have to chase this woman and always make her happy, that's all you're ever going to do.
Right.
You know?
There's
It won't be 50-50.
no, and there's definitely like a finesse to all of that, and like a fine line between one extreme and the other. And the perfect scenario is not as simple. I feel like, and then it comes down to like marriage is fucking hard. It's not an easy thing. It's not like, hey,
Yeah,
vows are done, we're good to go. Let's just ride this out until death do us part.
it's always learning.
There's a season, like season after season after season, and some of them are just fucking hard. You know what I mean? And I think if you have it in your brain that I'm gonna do the work and we're gonna work through things, as long as there's nothing like massively catastrophic here, we're both equally doing work, then the majority of the time you can make it work out. And there's never going to be constant easy times for decades. It's just not going to happen. You know what I mean?
That goes with one of my questions. You want to pop off a question?
Yeah.
That's perfect because one of the ones that you had with Heather, she was a therapist,
Sexologist.
Sexologist. Okay. She was saying, continuing to learn your partner. So like, marriage, you're always continuing to learn, and how like we're always saying you need to date your wife.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to be intentional. How do you go about setting up the scenarios that you guys can keep learning each other, not just be a mom and dad and forgot that you guys, actually liked each other.
Yeah. Well, and because we change, like,
Yeah.
like I'm not the same as I was when we got married,
No.
because we're going to be different. So it's that constant thing. So sorry, I didn't mean to like hijack
No, I'm
you,
just
but
saying that, do you offer like how to set up scenarios? Like, hey, you should be wanting to do this, do a little bit of this, and this way you guys get a little one-on-one and date your partner.
That's probably where the book The Dead Bedroom Fix would come in. But to add on to that book, it's we talk about it in the group quite a bit. DSO fraternity is dating the wife. There is this split, this dichotomy, if you will, of you have one side of you as a human, both men and women, which is like what I call the domestic side, the safe and secure, the family, the kids, the take care of the house, the job. And then there's the lover side or the sexy side or the erotic side. And those two really don't blend. But you have to maintain both sides, or else the whole thing just falls apart. And so many guys and gals just focus on this domestic side over here, and they totally forget about all of this over here. And it seems that men are, not always, don't jump on me, ladies, but men are typically the ones that raise their hand and go, what happened to the erotic, sexy stuff? Women tend to be more apt to go kind of sexually dormant. Like they get so anxious in their head about kids and the house and the job and husband and sexy time with husband and everything else is way down at the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
And that really aggravates a lot of men because
I feel like a lot of men don't stay sexy. Like a lot of guys,
absolutely.
A lot of guys do not like, hey man, you fatting out of shape now. Like you're not, like if she met you now, she wouldn't want you. Like what art you have, she's gotta stay interested. You gotta evolve, dude. You gotta keep moving on. You gotta be intentional about.
Well, there is a chorus of women though out there, in those men's defense. There is a chorus of people and women out there saying that stuff, the physical stuff and the staying sexy stuff, to women doesn't really matter. You can just drop all that shit. We as women don't care about that kind of stuff. We're more evolved than that. We like the deeper stuff. We like the personality. We like the da 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 da. And we're like, okay. And we allow ourselves to gain 40 pounds and we drop all of our hobbies and all that stuff that made us an independent, attractive dude. And lo and behold, distance grows, attraction, goes away.
I was going to say, I don't buy into that.
I know how women work. That's not there. Yeah.
And you, I watched a conversation you had. I can't remember her name, and it was about you guys were talking about going to the gym, and like, hey, I'm getting healthy, I'm going to get strong, I'm going to get fit, and then the wife starts saying, oh, you want to leave your family? I wish you would just stay here. Don't go to the gym tonight, or hey, I made your favorite dessert. Like that thing. Actually, that actually happens, right? That's a real scenario. I'm not saying I'm the fittest guy in the world, but I've always been an athlete. I've always worked out, since when my wife met me, that's what I did. So that was never, fortunately, I've never had an issue because it's just always been there. It wasn't a new thing I picked up. But in my mind, my reason for working out changes, where before it's like, hey, I'm doing this for performance, or I'm doing this to look good naked kind of thing, or look good on the beach. Now it's more like the intention is more, hey, I want to stay healthy for my kids. I'm 43 years old. I have a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old, right? So like I've got to stay in good shape and good health for that. I want to play with them.
Yep.
But I also believe wholeheartedly that like my wife doesn't deserve a fat slob that's out of shape.
Bingo. There you go.
Know what I mean?
I'm trying to up my percentage of having sex.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to give myself the best chance in my own house.
Yeah. No, 100%. And she doesn't deserve me to let myself go. Right.
Yeah. There you go.
She met me at a certain point, and that's it. And I owe it to us for me to stay as close to that as possible. You know what I mean?
You're touching on a touchy subject though.
No, I know.
You're being what's called a good steward of the relationship. You're like, I got to do my part over here. This relationship machine takes some maintenance. Got to put oil in the machine, and part of that oil is I got to stay healthy, and I got to stay as attractive as I can. Thanks to father time and age and all that other stuff. It's a way more difficult than it used to be, but I owe it to her and to us to at least try as hard as I can to maintain and all that other stuff. Well, what's interesting is I don't know if you guys saw I did actually a couple different experiments, if you will, or videos on TikTok, where I said 2 different videos. And I said, men, your wife comes up to you and says, the way you look and what you're doing and everything else, it's not attractive to me. I'm sorry, I love you, but this ain't doing it for me anymore. How do you respond to that? And then I made the exact same video for women. The vast majority of men, 90 some odd percent, said basically some semblance of, well, I better get my ass in the gym. I better get to work. Thanks for telling me. Appreciate it. I don't want to lose my wife and my family.
Mm-hmm.
Can you guess what the results were for the women?
Oh boy.
They basically flipped it completely.
Yeah.
And in fact, even more so, if it was, let's say, I don't remember the numbers. Let's say 90% of men. Well, it was like 97% of women said, you can go F yourself. And the comments from the women in the videos were pretty troubling.
I'm sure.
And a lot of men were like, holy crap, that's a real eye opener. And the first video I posted, they picked it apart and said the language between the 2 videos weren't exactly the same.
Oh,
it's not fair. So I said, you got it. And I redid it months later. And I made the videos literally exactly the same. The only thing I changed was men and women at the beginning. And the numbers, I think, were even worse.
Really?
So, and there are several other content creators out there that have done something similar. There's a guy by the name of Rudy A, who I'm buddies with, and we've done a lot of collaborations together. And he did one where he said, hey, men, if you don't want your spouse to cheat on you, here's some things you can do to maintain that connection between the 2 of you. He made video for men and video for women. Women, tens of thousands of comments of, if you can go F yourself, I don't have to do anything. So there is some cultural, whatever, I don't know what you call it, thing out there where something has been implanted in the minds of a lot of women that what you just talked about, I got to be a good steward of the relationship. I owe it to him. It's just gone.
Yeah.
Oh, did any women explain why, or they just bashed it?
Well, when you really listen to them, which I try to do, try to be empathetic to their plight, it's basically this. Do you realize how much freaking work I do? I'm a mother. I'm basically stressed out to the gills 24/7 with everything, kids, house, job. The majority of domestic duties falls on me, whether that's true or not. That's how they feel. Right. I'm the one who has to take on the mental load of everything kid-wise. My husband doesn't even know the name of the kid's teacher. While I know all this stuff. My husband does his part with this and this, but I do these 20 other things. I went through childbirth of 1, 2, 3 kids, very hard on my body. As time marches on, I'm perimenopausal, which means my hormones are dialing down, which means I'm tired all the time, which means I can't lose this little belly no matter how hard I try, et cetera, et cetera. And then here comes husband going, you know what's unattractive about you? And after all that, she's like, you can go F yourself, dude. I don't want to hear it.
And are they right or are we wrong?
I mean,
we both got a point.
Yeah. No, for sure. And like,
especially if they just got done the kids thing. I mean, I understand. I mean, they do take the, I take the worst of it as far as body transformation.
Yeah, for sure. And hormones are crazy, and that's a whole. There's a lot of layers to it. I don't think it's as easy as this or that, but I think the effort should be matched.
Bingo.
You know
Yes.
what I mean? I'm not. We're not the same, but the effort has got to be the same.
This is the point I made in follow-up videos was men do not want perfection. This is what every woman feels. Thank you, social media, pornography, and all that other stuff is, oh, he wants a young 23-year-old who looks perfect from every angle and is, sex crazed and everything. No. Well, okay, maybe, but no. Not from our wife. We don't want that. Yeah. We want effort. And music to every man's ear would be, let's say they're at home with the kiddos and the wife packs a gym bag and she's heading out the front door and the husband goes, "Where are you going?" And she says, "I'm going to yoga. I got to stay sexy for my sexy man. I'll be back in an hour."
Perfect. That's it. I'm like, this is hot.
Oh, the clouds open up, the sunshine comes down, and he's like, "My wife is perfect. I love her to death." Same woman, looks the same, but the effort is there, which shows he has some value enough that she puts in a little bit of extra effort. Got to stay sexy for my sexy man. Doesn't take much. That's all we ask.
Validate your efforts. So you get a little, you get a little circle going. Like, great. You know what I mean? Like, she's now, I'm working hard. She's working hard. Yeah. You don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
This is why when so many men go through this, a lot of men, they hit 40, whatever it may be, and they're like, I got to get my butt into shape. Or they read my book, or they follow my material or other material, and they go, I've lost myself. I got to get back to the gym. I got to get to work. What they expect is their wife to say, "Hallelujah, I got my husband back. I love it. What do I need to do to help you out? I'll watch the kids. You go to the gym. I'll help you make your healthy meals. We'll throw out the snacks." But often it's just the opposite. Like you mentioned earlier, let me make your favorite dessert. Why are you abandoning me and the kids? You've already gone twice this week. Isn't that enough?
Yeah.
Are you cheating on me? So it really taps into her insecurities, and the men feel worse about their wives. Like, damn it, why can't you be my cheerleader in this? Bob's wife is his cheerleader, but why are you got to be sabotaging me in my efforts? Right. So it's a very touchy subject.
Yeah. That's a good segue into another question of mine is men, becoming lesser. You need plugged in?
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, I just got an alert on a laptop. We're going to plug it real quick.
Lesser versions of themselves once they're married. They have kids, and some of my friends and stuff like this don't have hobbies. They're not being intentional about being manly or being manly role model for their kids. They're just going through it. They're just going with the flow. They're not like we try to be very intentional about what pace we're setting, examples we're setting.
Live with a purpose.
Yeah, live with a purpose, which I feel like a lot of people don't do.
No, and I think men have, as a whole, as a species, have lost the living with a purpose, or like having something to themselves, right?
A mission.
Exactly. And I always go back to the analogy, like, we're big outdoorsmen, right? So like we like to hunt a lot, but hunting doesn't, when I speak of it, doesn't mean like going out into the woods, kill animals, but like be a better businessman. Go chase, some sort of excellence somewhere. Go chase the gym, right? Like choose these targets to hunt down. That's going to keep your masculinity, right?
Hone a craft.
Yeah, you're honing and whatever it is, right? Pursue your wife all the time. Like, one of the best pieces of marriage advice I ever got. My current wife now is actually my second wife. I was divorced. I got married real young, divorced young. That's a whole other story. But my second marriage, a buddy of mine said, like, never stop trying to win her heart. And just like, so always pursue her, always treat her like you're trying to get her to go on a date with you, right? You're so that you don't, being intentional about not losing that in just life's fucking busy. You could easily, from the time we wake up, the time we go to bed, we're going. We got kids in sports and cheerleading, and we're involved in all these different things around the community. So like, it's very easy to just be like, we're exhausted. Let's just, I'll catch up with you later.
Chalk it up to the normal everyday thing.
No, but being the intentional, like, you got time Friday or Thursday or Wednesday, let's go out to dinner, right? Let's get a babysitter. Let's go out to dinner real quick. Or, hey, if I'm only seeing you for a minute in the kitchen, then I'm grabbing your ass. Right. Yes. I'm going to give you a slap on the ass and, whatever. We're going to keep. So like those little types of things. And it is all encompassing. It's just a big whole of, like, I think men are just not, the effort isn't there. The intentional things that I feel like they have to do.
Keep it sexy.
Forever, always, right? I know we're kind of jumping all over the place, but you agree with that piece?
Absolutely. I mean, for the relationship wise, it's called setting the tone. Those little touches and those little everything, little pecks on the cheek, those little whatever. It's not just to grab the woman saying we want to do it, but more holistically, life wise, yeah. Mission. That's something I preach to so many men.
There it is. Yeah,
I was just talking to a very successful businessman over in Europe by the name of Daniel Priestley. He was on the podcast, and we both agreed. Let's say you want to get this business and build the business and sell it for $100 million. And you work your tail off day in, day out, and you get to the prize, and somebody offers you $100 million, and you go, there you go. What a lot of people like that, very active, hungry, mission-driven business type guys will tell you, like 10 out of 10 guys will tell you, once that's done, they don't just say, phew, I can rest now. They say, well, on to the next thing, because they realize it's all about the mission and the goal and that to-do list. And they keep getting hungry. The more they achieve, the more they knock things off the list. They have that energy. They're go, go, go. And they realize when they finally reach the end, they're like, oh, the money's nice. I don't have to worry about that anymore. But let's think about the next project, because it keeps them going. It keeps them healthy, keeps them energized. Yeah. And that's a lot of elderly will say the same thing. I'm retired now. Well, shit, now what? I don't have... This ain't doing it for me anymore. I want to do something to keep busy. So they go get a little side job or a little side project or some kind of philanthropy is the other word, a charity thing or something to keep them busy. That's very important. I think it's extra important to men. And you're right. That is something that has been lost.
Yeah. 100%. And it's, and by the way, like, I don't believe that has anything to do with, maybe sometimes, about like the infidelity pieces. And I'm not saying like men deserve that if they're like that. Yeah, I'm not saying that at all. It doesn't help for sure. But you talk about just like going to the gym to stay attractive physically, right? There's the other piece too, physiologically. Is that the right word? That we've got to pursue these things to live to our full potential.
It's all part of the package. But what you're describing is, a lot of men hear that and hear me say that, and I hear this all the time. Dude, that sounds like a lot of work. And if I'm going to put in that work, the prize at the end better be freaking worth it. And what these guys say is, I look at the prize at the end and I go, I don't know, man. The wife who's just going to nag the shit out of me and, treat me like dirt and possibly divorce me and take everything I own, I've earned over the years, blah, blah, forget it. And there's this whole movement online. I don't know if you guys have heard MGTOW, MGTOW. Okay. It stands for Men Going Their Own Way. It's a literal online movement of men saying, we've looked at the relationship game. We're going to go over here. Sorry, I've bowed out completely. And part of what drives that movement, what angers that movement further, is they say, we're out. And basically society and all of women say, we don't care. Yeah. There's a lot more dudes just like you out there.
Are you saying that, it's weak men? Are you saying that it's just weak men are like, well, if we make it a cause, then we don't have to acknowledge the fact that we failed or that we're failing because we're not even trying. We're not going to try. It's too hard, but we'll create a movement to make ourselves feel good. And we'll get some other sad followers.
I think you have something there. You're onto something. There is this, there's all kinds of, the more you get online, I've been exposed to this world so much that I hear all these acronyms and things being thrown at me. There's this incel world. I don't know if you're familiar with this. Involuntary celibate men. People come up with all these terms for things that have been around for ages and ages. It's basically guys who can't get laid.
Yeah.
And as far as they're concerned, they have everything that they need tool-wise to get laid, but the world still hates them. Women want nothing to do with them. I'm super nice. I'm super smart. I'm super everything. And then when you drill down into it and you say, well, here's what it takes, dude, if you want that wife and family, what you just outlined, the work, they just say, nah, I really shouldn't have to do that.
That's so weak to me.
Very.
You can't get rid of it. It's just sad that today's society allows it. Because just 2 generations ago, 1 generation ago, shit would not have allowed that. You know what I mean?
You can be, that just goes to being a human now. You can be you could just never leave the house. You can order shit, it'll come to the house. You can be, men could just be lazy pieces of shit, and they could get through life very safely, not have to worry about dying. They ain't gotta go out and chop wood like, well, you just turn the heater on. If it breaks, you just call the people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that kind of brings me to like one of the last things I wanted to kind of get your opinion on. No, this is going way deeper to everything we're just talking about. The changes and shifts in like our endocrine system, like our hormones as men, and like society as a whole, it really tries to suppress the high test alpha dominant male and has made it to be like a bad thing. But what you get out of that is a bunch of weak, soft men that don't want to pursue, don't want to build, don't want to chase the dreams and go after the girl. That when you suppress a high testosterone driven man, that's what you get. That, in my opinion, no woman wants that, and like, what do you think and discuss these things, like, our drinking water, our products that we put on, under our armpits, and all these things in our environment that cause this, and then certain aspects of society that are saying like, stop being such a manly man.
A double whammy, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a sin, man.
So you have the environmental part of it, which I think there's something to it. The plastics, these endocrine disruptors and all this other stuff. My wife's a physician. She talks about that stuff all the time. That's very real stuff.
Yeah.
I think the question is, or the science is still out there, exactly how much of an impact does that have? Because we know for a fact that, yes, testosterone levels have been dropping precipitously in men over the years, as well as fertility levels, sperm levels in men have been dropping over the years. So, something's going on here. So we need to get to the bottom of that. But you're right. On top of that is the societal thing of manly man bad. Prop up your more feminine features, if you will, or characteristics, men, if you want to be a more holistically attractive man. But then what those poor men have found is like, I'm pretty feminized. I've squashed all my male whatever. I dare not approach a woman. I'll tell you that much. What's interesting is, a side note, there was a study done here recently of a survey of young men. I believe it was age 18 to 29 or something like that. And of those men, roughly half of them have never, ever approached a woman in any way. Ever.
Good Lord.
That's sad, dude.
How many dads they have?
Yeah.
I think of the new manly man. Like, I think about like my grandfather, manly as hell. But that generation was not emotional. All right. So they really drank a lot. They just didn't, they weren't like, they weren't doing the words of affirmation. So we are selling, you need to be manly. That is genetically in you. It's you have to be manly, but you also need to bring your wife up with you. You're not leaving people behind.
Yeah.
So now we're doing both sides. We're doing the manly stuff. We're also doing all the emotional stuff for our family. So we need to be a hybrid now. It's
interesting. What you're describing psychologically is something called avoidant behavior. I don't want to go if it gets emotional, if it gets real, I don't want to, no, I don't want to do that. Men typically are more avoidant than women. But I'll tell you what, I'm hearing more and more and more stories of anxious dude, avoidant wife. Mr. Man is the one that wants to go to counseling and talk about things, and let's read this book on relationships together. Let's listen to this podcast together, wife. And the wife's just like, can we just not? Can you just leave me the F alone and man the F up? So we're seeing, it's interesting because we're talking about men not approaching women, men being convinced, don't work out, don't do all these manly things, the environmental factors and everything. It's suppressing all of these men to the point where we're noticing, it seems that a relatively few are kind of rising to the top, cream of the crop as far as the men are concerned, and they're getting all the women. And it could be argued that's kind of the natural state of things. That's the way
100%,
it's. There's this concept called the Pareto principle, that the top 20 seem to get all the rewards, whatever it is. You could be hunters, for example. I take 10 hunters and say, go out in the woods and kill something. 2 of them are going to come back with something. The other 8 are be like, I don't know, man. Whatever the discipline is, I'm a plumber, I'm a whatever. It's always seems to be that there's always 2 out of the 10 succeed and the rest just fall by the wayside. And we're seeing that in the old mating game right now. It's a select few. We see it we have the data that, flushes this out in the online dating landscape, where we see what percentage of men are getting attention. Very, very small versus women, most of them. We see there's an interesting piece of data that I've done videos on, and a lot of people have talked about this. OkCupid, the online dating website, they published a lot of data years ago. And one of the pieces of data that was the most disturbing was they were able to determine who was attractive with their accounts based on how many people are looking at their account, their profile, and how long they're spending on it and clicking on pictures and so forth. And as far as women were concerned, it was the distribution was what you would expect. As far as not very attractive at all, it was very few. Most were like in the middle, average. And then super duper attractive, it goes this way. So the distribution is normal, what you would expect.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it always, most people are average. And then you looked at the men as far as what they were concerned. 80 some odd % were considered below average in attractiveness. Women were not interested in 80% of the men. And a lot of people looked at that and said, what the hell?
What kind of bait are they need to help on? You know what I mean?
It's fascinating. And you think about all these different aspects and layers to this, and it's fascinating. But in the end of the day, and the evidence is right there out in the open, is that women and men, they tend to go with, the more manly or the more feminine, or, it's just humans have not changed much in the past, however many millions of years, right? That a lot of this stuff we're talking about is new. It's 1 generation away, 2 generations away. It's not, this is relatively new, uncharted areas. You know what I mean? So, and it's just fascinating. So we're just right about an hour. I do have one last question for you. When is Mom Starting Over going to happen? Have you ever thought about that?
Well, here's an interesting little tidbit for you. We started a little side discussion group for wives of the men in our Dad Starting Over group, the DSO fraternity. I don't know how many women got in there, maybe a dozen or something like that. It wasn't much.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't go too well.
No,
the women weren't as active at all, weren't as go, weren't as proactive in talking about this stuff. My wife was in the group, and it basically devolved into kind of a gossipy, not really talking about much constructive kind of thing.
Probably what you would expect.
Yeah. So does that appeal to that? That's not a very fair. I'm not talking about a huge sample size of thousands of women that I can, just talking about a dozen women or so. But from what I understand, talking to others, this is kind of a very manly thing we're talking about, where a bunch of men get together and say, let's figure this out. Men like to fix. We got an issue. Let's fix it. That's why thing. My book, The Dead Bedroom Fix, was so attractive, is that it's so boom, 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 relatively short read, not a lot of fluff. Men read it and go, damn it, that's what I need. I like it. I like how you laid everything step by step. Versus another book, which has sold bazillions of copies, way more than my books. It's a book aimed at women, predominantly women. Men can read it, of course, but it's called Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski. And it's all about female sexuality and trying to understand female sexuality. My book is like yay thick. Her book is like yay thick. And of course. Boy. And I read it. And after I got done reading it, I'm basically like, okay, now I'm just more confused than ever.
Yeah.
It's all over the place. It basically can be summarized as whatever you got going on with you, female sexually, that's okay. Everyone's different. Everyone has their own flavor of whatever. If you think this way, great. If you think that way, great. Everybody's wonderful. I just summarized the entire book for you.
Yeah, and again, like creatures, a male and a female, where I think there's more accountability with men. Like if you and I are good buddies and you're acting a certain way, I'm going to hold you accountable to your standards. Where I think, by and large, right, not all, that kind of piece is missing in a lot of female circles. And you saying like have your female section of your fraternity, how that kind of fizzled out. The book that just basically validates, hey, whatever you feel is okay, is right. There's no accountability with any of those things, and that's why it doesn't really go anywhere.
Women don't have a camaraderie as much as men do.
It's not the same, right?
You put a bunch of women in a room, they tend to get at each other's throats more than anything. I've talked about that too. And when I've said that in videos and stuff before, and I tell you what, the vast majority of women come in the comments saying, amen. I live this all the time. This whole thing about the sisterhood is kind of a myth. We tend to get at each other's throats and try to sabotage each other in this whole mating game.
It's crazy.
It's interesting. This whole the relationship world is very interesting.
It is.
You guys will get more and more into it, and you'll learn about all these interesting acronyms with MGTOW and incel and this red pill world and everything else. It gets very interesting.
Yeah, it is wild, man.
Keep it stupid simple over
here. Yeah, we're just a couple simple guys. Well, look, man, I want to respect your time. I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you guys so much. I think a lot of people are going to get a lot of things out of this. So yeah, I really appreciate you. And you're okay. We post up all your links.
Absolutely. dadstartingover.com pretty much gets you to everything. And search for Dad Starting Over on social media and you'll find me.
Okay, great. Yeah, and we'll put up links to your Facebook, your TikTok, your YouTube. Is there one platform you're more active on than another?
Not by choice, but it just happens to be that Facebook really took off. Okay. Probably because what I talked about, those ads at the beginning. But right. I have, 6-figure followers there, as well as TikTok really took off as well. I would love to grow YouTube. So guys, check me out on YouTube. Whoever's listening to this.
We'll post up all those links. Ralph, I really appreciate it, buddy. Hope we can chat again sometime.
All right. Thank you guys so much.